In this video, I'm going to show you more about the actions and things we can do with materials and warp and weft systems. So let's get started with something in our drawdown. And we'll assume that for this particular draft, we're working on a jacquard loom, because in my experience, that's where I end up using things like warp and weft systems a little bit more. So where this really kind of comes to life and gets to be a little bit more interesting is where we're working on weaves with multiple layers. So let's say I'm going to fill this whole drawdown area with a double weave. So here's my double weave. Now, let's say that I want there to be a different pattern or a different set of operations on my top versus my bottom layers. Well, one thing you can do, but it's a bit cumbersome, is you can come in here and you can assign every one of these individual rows to a new layer. Now that's kind of a pain in the butt. The next easier way to do it would be to select that pattern, to hit copy, and to then hit paste and have that pattern repeat, but that's also kind of a pain. So what we've actually added is this palette that's called actions. And these are kind of bulk actions that you can perform that sort of push different patterns to your warp and weft materials and to your warp and weft systems. So let's say, because I have a double weave, I have two warp systems, one that's associated with the top layer and one that's associated with the bottom layer. So we'll call that A and B. If I did need to add C back, I could just click it here or get rid of it. Now, when I hit this button, it's going to apply that pattern. So here we go. You can see I have A, B, A, B. And because I have one of those systems hidden, that's why we no longer see it in our draft view. So I can show that again when we get back to where we were. Now, let's say I also want my top layer to be associated with one color and my bottom layer to be associated with a second color. I will say, okay, I'm going to have my top colors alternate between black and green. I push that and I get black and green here. Now I'm going to do the same thing on my weft systems. And let's say maybe we'll do black and green again just for the sake. Oh, that would be green and black. Let's do black and green. Now I push it on there. So let's go ahead and look in visual mode. Okay, we can see some interesting things here, and actually that the black on the weft is being associated with the green on the warp. So what I'm actually going to do is switch the order there. So I'm going to go green and then black. And if I push it, okay. Now it looks like I have this black layer that's sitting on top of this green layer. So this is kind of interesting. I can see basically the two layers of my double weave. Now, if I want, I can view the back of my double weave by clicking back or putting it back in the front. Now, let's say I just want to see what the bottom layer looks like. My bottom layer is layer B. So, I'm sorry, layer A. So I hide layer B, so I'm just seeing layer A. But I also want to hide the kind of floating warps that are tied into layer B. There we go. So if I didn't know where they were, I could sort of play around until I figured it out. So it looks like weft system A is associated with warp system B. That's a little bit confusing. Maybe we'll go ahead and just change that so it's B and A. Okay, that's better. So now weft system A is associated with warp system A, and that they're both sitting on the bottom layer. And then warp system and weft system B are sitting in the top layer. Now, let's say I want to do something of a design element on my top layer. Like maybe I want my top layer not to span the entire fabric, but to just be an inlay. And that's often something that we have to do when we're doing integrating kind of decorative components or strange components. So what I can do is actually, let's go back to the draft. I'm going to work on system A. So I'm actually going to hide system B. And now all I see is system A, and I'll hide that one too. So if I go into my design tools now, and I select a region, and I say, you know what? I don't even want to catch the yarns on this side. I want them to go all, I just want to lift all the heddles there so that I just have this back layer on a limited part of the weave. Then I can do that like this, so. And then when I show the other layer again, you'll see that it automatically interlaced those, right? So it didn't change the whole weave, it only changed the weave on that layer. And that's been something that I found really useful, specifically when you're working with more complicated drafts. Okay, and then when we look here, we see it a little bit differently. But that is my interpretation of warp systems and weft systems, and also of materials. One of the things I'll also show you about the materials is the kinds of things that you can specify. So if we go into our materials tab here, right now I just have it default to random colors. So let's say we wanted to change everything that's black now. I want to change it to this kind of deep blue. There we go. And let's say we want to take everything that is, actually, let me go up here because I want to, let's say, like maybe my little inlay layer um, is of a different color. How would I do that? Let's say I want color 2, where the blue is now. I could come in and switch the colors here and push them. Then when I go back, oh, okay, that looks a little bit different. All right, so if I need to add anything or I need to add another color, I can go in and do it here. So I'll call this another color. And because this program is thinking a lot about weaving with conductive materials, you have the option to specify whether this new yarn you're adding is conductive or non-conductive. So if I say it's conductive, all that essentially does is make it show up separately when we look at the circuit view. So let's say that every third weft pick is made with this conductive yarn. Well, now when I go into the circuit view, I will actually see more prominently the yarns that are marked as conductive. And we're seeing the green yarn here too, which is funny because I didn't intend for that to be conductive. So I can go in here and set it back to non-conductive. And you'll see that that makes it go away. So this allows you to say, okay, well, if I want all of my conductive patterning to do something different, we can go back to actions, and then we can also assign a third weft system, right? So now if I zoom in, I'll see that this green yarn is associated with A, the tan yarn with B, and my conductive layer with C. So I'll go in and I am going to go into my draft and hide A and B so I only see what's happening on C. And let's say I want my C yarns to not even be part of this double weave. I want them to be integrated throughout. And let's say I want them to be integrated in a plain weave. Well, I can come in here, fill in tabby, and then zoom out. Oh, I have this little brick on the side. Then when I show the other layers, you can see how that's been integrated in now on every associated system. Okay, well that is my very quick and rough overview of working with materials and actions. And our hope is that as you use these specifications over time, they get a little bit more comfortable. And we'll add a few more videos that put these in the context of a particular project.